All right, the time is 2 o'clock, and if you will give me just a second, I will test my microphone to make sure that it's working. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say hello. All right. I'm going to say hello. See who's out there. I see Brenda is out there, Barbara, Ann, B, Sandy. I see Carol is out there, Alicia. Lots of people from all over the place. Arizona, Texas, Ohio, Quebec. Welcome everybody. And I have a quick question. Rainy Day Diva, are you the lady who runs the Rainy Day Diva blog? Because I just saw it the other day. So welcome, 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 welcome friends. Super happy for you to be here. This is month 6 of the Dresden Project. So if you're working on the Dresden Project and you're following along with us, this is a sew-along. And so what I'm creating is a giant quilt, 60 by 60, not super giant, but a quilt that you could make bigger if you wanted to. And you could use the flowers that we're creating to make a giant center medallion for, like, let's say a queen size quilt. You could also use it just as a lap quilt. So I'm going to have lots of options for finishing this quilt. And I'm going to actually create a finished pattern for you to finish this quilt. All right, so today is a flower that I love. It is the Primrose. The Primrose comes in a variety of colors, everything from the beautiful pinks and purples that you see, but one of my favorites is the pale pink Mexican Primrose. So I'm going to switch my camera view and I'm going to show you what you need to finish one Primrose Dresden flower. So let's get started. All right, let me switch my camera view and hopefully you can see my hands right here. So the first thing that I'm going to say is, happy Sunday. The first thing that I'm going to say is if you do not have a specialty ruler, and on the handout I listed this ruler. This is the Darlene Zimmerman Petal Shapes. I've had it for a while. It's not super expensive. You can grab it for about $6 or $7 on Amazon if you're in the US. Sometimes you can find them at big box stores, but I love this particular petal shape for making flower-shaped Dresdens. Hi Gisela. Gisela from Sweden is here. So if you cannot find this particular template, which is the 45-degree flower-shaped Dresden, then I'm going to show you, the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to cut it from a circle. So those of you know that a circle is 360 degrees, right? So if I want a flower that's 45 degrees, I'm just going to divide that, right, by 45. And what it's going to give me is the number 8. So I need 8 slices in my circle. So the first thing that I will do is I will take this, and this is freezer paper. So it's shiny on one side, it's got like a wax coating, and it's got a paper side. So I'm just going to take this circle, and I'm going to cut it out. And I'm going to fold it, because this is what's going to give me my shape. Like I said, if you have the template, you don't need to do this. But if you don't have the template, I still want you to be able to participate and do it with just everyday things that you have at the house. There's no reason to buy an expensive template if you don't have one. So this is just a circle of freezer paper. You can also use parchment paper. So my circle is 360 degrees. I want a 45-degree wedge. And so I'm just going to fold this in half. And I'm going to fold it in half again. Right? And so that gives me 4 pieces. And so if I want 8, I will fold that one more time. And I will create wedges that have a 45-degree angle. And so for those of you who do not have a template, you can do it this way. And then you're going to simply measure up here to nip the end, because most of these rulers have a blunted end. You're just going to come up here and you're going to measure about 1 inch on each side, and you're going to nip that off in the center like this to give you your Dresden blade. And then you're going to open that up and you're going to cut along each of those lines. So if you do not have the Darlene Zimmerman ruler, you can just do it this way. And cut them just like that, and you can use these as your templates, okay? So if you do not have the Darlene Zimmerman petal shape, which is a 45-degree Dresden, you can do it that way, right? The other thing that you can do if you don't have a big circle is you can use this is a 5.5 inch square, and you can use a square ruler. So if you notice on your rulers, right, or a rectangle, there's always a 45-degree line on your rulers, right? If I lay my 45-degree line on a 90, I'm bisecting that. And so if you've noticed, if I sliver this in half, a half square triangle is also known as a 45-degree triangle. So you can just take this, and if you have a square, make sure that it's square. Let me double check. Yes, this is actually a square. And you're just going to take a piece of cardboard, square, and you're going to bisect this in half. And this, from here to here, is also a 45-degree angle. And so you can simply cut it in half. And then you're just going to measure that these are equal distance, and then you can trim across and then cut the bottom off, and you also have a template you can use. So if you don't have this template, you can lay it right on there, and you can see that this is a 45-degree angle as well. And so you just chop off the bottom and make this even. So if I wanted to make that even, I would just measure along one side, just like this. And that says that that is 4 and not quite 4, but almost 5. So I would just come here to the other side. I would mark it. And then I could chop it off just like this. And now I have a 45-degree wedge that I could use for a Dresden. And I would cut off the end just like I did the other one. Just blunt. And there you have it. So now you have a 45-degree Dresden wedge. So you don't have to buy fancy templates. This is the cardboard that comes in a charm pack. So I save those and then I use them for these kinds of things. So you feel free to buy a template if you like those kinds of things. I do. Or you can just make your own. Okay? So this is for my friends who may not have access to a place where you can get the Darlene Zimmerman petal shape. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about the template I'm using or how to make your own template? You guys are good with that, right? All right, everybody. So easy peasy math in my class. I am a high school teacher by trade. That's what I do. That's my day job. And my fun job is making things with you guys. And so we're going to start by breaking down this particular flower. So the Primrose is not a large flower, so I'm going to be making this using 4.5 inch strips. So you're just going to take your jelly rolls and you're going to cut them 4.5 inches, right? But what you're probably noticing about those 4.5 inch strips is that they're too small. for this particular template. So if I lay this Dresden wedge on there, you're going to notice that my wedge is wider than what that is. And so you don't have to worry about it, because the next step after you cut your 4.5 inch pieces is to sew them together in pairs. So you're going to sew them like this. And so what that gives you is a 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch square. So if you have a good accurate quarter seam, you end up like this. You will need a total of 8 of these units in order to make a full Dresden flower. So if you're using 2 different colored jelly rolls, you're going to need 16 of these units, which are 2.5 inch by 4.5 inch. And then you will need to sew those into 8 sets, just like this, that are 4.5 by 4.5. Okay? Once you have that unit right there and you have your little square, then you're going to take your template, and if you have a paper template like this, you can simply press it down and cut it out. Make sure that if you cut it out and you're using a paper template like this, that you're adding a 1/4 inch seam allowance. But if you are just using the Darlene Zimmerman tool that I'm using, I'm going to lay that right here on the 4.5 inch line, just like this. And I'm going to center that with the markings on my template, and I'm going to cut this in half. Does anybody have any questions so far? Let me grab a rotary cutter over here. Easy math with me. I try to make easy math. Save these. If you sew these together, it also makes cute little scrappy blocks. So I'm going to take and I'm going to center. This template has a little line that I can center it with. And I'm going to end up making 8 wedges that look like this. If you have the tool, it shows you on here, it has markings that show you how to line it up against the top, center it, and trim these ears off to give it a gentle curve. If you don't have this tool, no worries. If you find a 4.5 inch circle, this happens to be from Panera. So if you love Panera and you buy their cream cheese, you can lay that on here, center it, and then you can take, I'm using a yellow colored pencil so you can see my marks. You're just going to take and add that curve to your piece, just like this. So I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to hold it up close. So it has that curve. You're going to take your scissors. Sometimes you can use regular scissors, but for these kinds of jobs, I have these micro serrated scissors. They're not super expensive, but they grip that fabric really, really well. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to cut those little ends. And then I have this shape. You're going to take these shapes just like before in the other Dresdens, and you're going to sew them in pairs, right? And then you're going to sew those pairs. I have 2 different sets, so I have this one and this one that I have to cut because mine are going to be alternating kind of light, dark, light, dark. And then once you do that, you're going to start sewing those in your circle like this. So the next one would be here. Let me cut a couple of these and sew them for you so you can see. Again, like I said, if you don't have the fancy tool, you can always use this. I like this tool because it makes it easy. I line up the centers and the bottom of this. It allows me to just simply cut around the top edge of that. Hopefully your rotary blade is sharper than mine. But if you don't have this tool, like I said, you can always do it the other way. And so I'm just going to trim this one here with my tool and get it ready to cut. So I'm just going to chop on both sides. You know, friends, it really helps when you open your ruler and you open your rotary blade. There you go. So you can do it either way. You can trim the half square and then the other. But you're going to want to line those up. And then you're going to want to make sure that you're lining up the top edge, not the bottom. Okay? So once I trim that and get it sewn, then I'm ready to put those sets together. And let me come over here to the sewing machine and do that really quick. Won't take me but a second. All right. You're going to open those and you're going to press them. So if you notice, this has almost no opening in the center. Most Dresdens have an opening. This one does not. And so this one gets put together a slightly different. So I'm trying to add my pieces this way. So I added these two next, right? I'm going to add this guy. And then these are my last two pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this guy to this guy. Just like that. I'll line them up. Let's see if I can switch my camera angle so you can see what I'm doing over here. Maybe. Let me move this stuff over so you can see what I'm doing on my machine. So over here, I'm lining these up and I'm sewing them from the top where it's curvy down to the tip, right? And when you're on your machine, you're going to want to make sure that you're lining up that edge with your 1/4 inch line. You don't want to stray very far. There we go, and so that's what it should look like. So let me put my camera back. Hope you're not getting dizzy, right? And now there's my next piece that's going to go in here, right? And so you just have to count, make sure that you have them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 pieces, and I'm going to join that together. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to sew it from the outside to the inside. But before I do that, I'm going to press this a little bit flat, because that'll just make it easier for me to join those pieces together. So when I press this, I press in one direction, kind of swirling those seams in one direction, just like that. And be careful not to stretch your pieces, because this can stretch. So you're going to want to kind of wiggle with your fingers just a hair, and then you're going to press it flat. Don't stretch it, just press it, right? Because these are 45-degree angles, so they can get stretched quite easily. I picked blue because it's one of my favorite colors of Primrose. Primroses come in a variety of colors, from hot pink to yellow, but I decided to do this bright blue. And I'm actually going to put this little yellow center in the middle of my Primrose. So this is kind of like a, I don't know, steampunk flower here going on. But deep blue Primroses do occur in nature, and so that's why I'm making this one. Okay, so now that I'm getting to the center of my flower, I'm going to go ahead and pull my camera back over here again so that you can see something that's kind of important, right? So let me pull my camera over here and let me show you. Can you guys see in my little circle? So I'm showing you my pivot point, right? I've stopped right here and I'm going to rotate this piece over until I close it, and then I'm going to sew down this way. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to stop right at my 1/4 inch seam, and then I'm going to pivot down this side to close that entire circle. Okay, so let me do that really quick. Okay, and so now my Dresden looks like this, right? And now I'm going to tease it and get it to lay flat. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to the back, and it's got this big, giant center. Because my Dresden is going to have a middle, I'm going to actually cut out that seam. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all of these lay flat going towards the center, right? And it looks like they all do. So now I have this giant thing in the middle. It looks like a trumpet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little circle. You can use anything you have. You can use something like this, which is a little bit of medical tape, and you can draw a circle around it. You can also use, something small. Maybe you have adding machine tape, anything that's smaller than the center that you're going to be placing on your flower. But for me, this little piece of medical tape works just fine. I also like to use medical tape on the back of my templates because it keeps them from sliding. So if you have medical tape that's clear, it's a great tool for your sewing room. Also, if you are gripping needles and stuff, I wrap a little bit of medical tape around my fingers. And so now that I have that, I'm just going to give it a snip in the middle. And I'm going to trim that all the way around. So now I'm going to give it a little trim. And I'm going to stick my scissor in there, and I'm just going to give it a little trim all the way around. Don't be afraid. I'm just getting rid of all of that bulk because I don't want it in the center of my flower, right? I'm just trimming that and getting rid of that big bulky middle, which I'm not going to use in my flower. Now I'm going to press it flat, and I'm ready to put my center on my flower. So I have my Dresden. I'm going to line that up, and I'm going to center that. So I'm going to mark this in half, and in half again. And that gives me a little middle, and I can put my middle right there. For those of you who have not made a middle before, super easy. Let me just show you how I did this. And so what I did is I simply took a little bit of interfacing. I drew a circle on it, and I sewed it with dark thread so that you can see, and then I flipped it over. And I try to make things as simple as possible so that people can follow along, especially new quilters. So if you've been quilting a long time like I have, or you've been quilting for one day, I try to make my instructions so that they're easy for anybody to follow. There you go. Once you have that and it's all ready, then I'm going to take and I'm going to put that in the middle just like that. And I can feel the middle. I'm going to lay it there with my finger where I can feel it, and then I'm just going to give her a little press. And then my flower is going to be ready for me to hand applique or use it in a pillow. You can even turn this into a cute mug rug if you wanted to. And if your circle is a tiny bit lopsided like mine is, don't worry about it. That's the beauty of handmade things. They don't have to be perfect. I love giving my handmade things as gifts to other people, and your things don't have to be perfection. They just have to be right for you. So for those of you who joined me before, look what I did here. So this is the pincushion I made. I glued it on top of a little piece of stoneware. I put filling in it, and so it is now my pincushion, and it has my thread catcher attached. So don't be afraid to branch out and do things. This is now ready to go. How I'm going to finish this is by taking the edges and turning them under, just like this. I'm going to press at each intersection, and I'm going to applique this down. And you can applique this down by machine, so you can either come as you sew and just turn the little corners like this so that it has the shape of a primrose. I just start in these little valleys right here. And then you can take and just literally pinch it with your finger, roll it. I don't know if you can see that. So you're going to take and pinch it with your finger, roll it back, just like that. Give it the shape you want. Give it a press. Turn it all the way under. And this is why I don't use a bunch of starch on my fabric, because when you use a bunch of starch, you can't play with it with your fingers. And you're just taking that and you're rolling it back with your fingers, just like that, until you get that little scallopy shape you want, and you're going to applique it down. That's one way. Another way is by taking this entire flower and putting it face down on interfacing and sewing all the way around, making those scallops nice and deep, and then turning it just like I did the center. And so you can turn this into whatever you want. You can applique, you can put people's names on it. And so I'm going to be making several of these for my big large quilt. But this is it. Super easy, easy peasy breezy evening primrose. If you want these scallops to be deeper, like if you want them deeper on yours, you can always take even like a little dish, and you can actually make those scallops even deeper if you wanted them to be like even deeper. Or you could just take these, fold them in half at all of those scallop junctions, and you can just trim that just like this and make your scallops even deeper if you wanted deeper scallops on your flower. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I've got a lot of other things coming up. So next year I'm doing a row quilt, which can also be turned into table runners. So it's already posted on my website if you haven't been there. My website has all of the information about what we're going to be doing starting in January. So on New Year's Day of 2023, I'm going to be starting a whole new series. I'm finishing up my gnomes. We've done a lot of things, friends. There you go. Look at that. See how I've trimmed those scallops? So you can make it into a nice little deep scallop. If you didn't think the scallops were deep enough, you can just make them a little bit deeper like I did. Press it out and then get it ready to applique onto your quilt. You can applique this as a quilt label. You can turn it into a pillow, a mug rug, or you can make an entire quilt full of these. So the choice is yours. You decide what to do with this little flower. I'm just teaching you how to make it. And I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions? You can look for updates on this particular quilt on my Facebook page and on YouTube, because I'm going to be building the rest of this quilt and giving you guys an update so that you guys can see this darling quilt as it comes together. All right, friends, if I don't have any other questions, this is it. This is the super easy way to create a flower using easy tools, a 45-degree wedge if you have them, but if you don't, you can use just about anything you've got. All right, friends, that's it. I hope you have a great afternoon. It is 2:30. Get out there and enjoy what little bit of sunshine is left because winter is coming to the northern hemisphere. And so I've got to get outside and enjoy a little bit of sunshine, whatever sunshine is left, because the days are getting shorter. All right, friends, I hope you have a great afternoon, and I will see you soon. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Toodles.